Okay, welcome to a new episode of Nate's MMA Corner. I'm Nate, and if you watch my show, you're in my corner. Today's episode is a post-fight show for UFC on Fox. Johnson versus Reis, and okay, this is a post-fight rundown of the main card, and yeah, let's get started. Oh wow, this was a pay-per-view quality main card. And yeah, the main event was for the UFC Flyweight Championship of the World. Demetrious Johnson trying to tie the all-time record for most consecutive title defenses at 10. And he did it against Wilson Reis. It was third round submission, armbar. It was amazing. The first two rounds he teed off on Wilson Reis, and then third round got him to the ground and finished him. Amazing. And Wilson Reis is an expert jiu-jitsu guy, so he made it look easy, which is even more impressive. And you got to ask yourself, maybe Demetrious Johnson is the greatest fighter of all time. I think right now it's a debate. He's definitely in the mix. But if he wins his next one or two matches, then he surpassed the all-time record. And I would say, for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, he's the greatest pound-for-pound fighter in the history of the sport. Ray Borg looks like a possible contender next in line for this belt. Wow, amazing. I mean, he's tied Anderson Silva's record, and again, like I said on my pre-fight show, George St. Pierre's record, because George St. Pierre 9 + 1 = 10, and George St. Pierre technically defended the interim title and then won the welterweight title and then defended that 9 times, so it's kind of sort of 10. Yeah, Demetrious Johnson can do everything and do everything well, and I think the challenge for him right now is just to stay focused and try to surpass that record right now. That's what he needs to focus on, is whoever his next opponent is, look at all their strengths and weaknesses and see how can he beat them and not let this get to his head. Okay, yeah, this was a pretty straightforward match. It was Demetrious Johnson teeing off on the stand-up on Wilson Reis, making it look easy on the stand-up, and then finishing in the third round on the ground. And then in the co-main event, in the women's strawweight division, we had Rose Namajunas versus Michelle Waterson. On my pre-fight show, I picked Rose Namajunas to win, and I predicted probably by submission. And she won submission, rear naked choke, round 2. It was pretty impressive. The strikes, looks like Rose had it pretty well in the striking department, but Michelle was able to hold her own in certain parts of the fight. But then Rose was able to get to the ground and get the submission win. And yeah, like I said on my pre-fight show, Rose was the higher caliber grappler, and that's what would get her the win, and it did. Then, and real quick, I just gotta say, I think Rose is in line for a title shot at this point. And I think Michelle Waterson can come back from this loss and be in title mix too, down the line. Then in the middleweight division, also on the main card, we had Robert Whittaker versus Ronaldo Souza. And Robert Whittaker just shocked me and awed me in this fight. I could not believe what I was seeing. I thought that, okay, at some point Souza's going to get to the ground and get the submission win. That didn't happen. Souza's desperate for the takedown when he was starting to get rocked. And Robert Whittaker was seeing it, and he was keeping his distance and keeping his guard up. And just teeing off on Souza. This was a TKO head kick and punches round 2. It was amazing. I could not believe what I saw. Robert Whittaker is the Ultimate Fighter winner, and he is definitely in line for a title shot or in a #1 contender fight against Luke Rockhold or maybe Yoel Romero, one of the two, depending on how this middleweight division works itself out, because you got Bisping and GSP apparently going to fight at some point for the middleweight title. So Robert Whittaker is either in title, his next fight's either for the belt or a #1 contender match. That's pretty much where he's at right now. Then in the featherweight division, to kick off the main card, we had Ronaldo Moicano versus Jeremy Stephens. And Yeah, Moicano was just the speed advantage, the beat him to the punch that Renato was displaying. It seemed like every time Jeremy Stevens was going for something, Renato was just a step above him in figuring it out and taking advantage of whatever spot he could. Yeah, this went decision split, and I think the judges got it right. I think Renato should have won by unanimous decision, but nonetheless, the right person won the fight. This was, for the most part, a stand-up war, and it was a good fight. It was fun to watch. And then, honorable mention on the prelims in the heavyweight division, we had Alexander Volkov versus Roy Nelson. Alexander Volkov did his thing, won the truly decisive unanimous decision. I knew he'd stay standing, and Volkov uses height and reach over Roy Nelson. I think Volkov is a name to reckon with in the heavyweight division, being a former Bellator champion, superstar, and having the likes of Kenny Johnson as his wrestling coach, I think is really going to go a long way for Alexander Volkov. So stay tuned in the future for that guy. And that wraps up the post-fight show for this card. Stay tuned for my pre-fight of Swanson versus Lobov. Yeah, so until then, see ya.